All right, we're going to jump back into our study on evolution, having a solid foundation to build our Christian lives on. So as we look at ostrich wings, the vestigial organs is what we're looking at. So what about wings on non-flying birds such as the ostrich? They're said to be vestigial. Every part of this creature points to perfect design. It is not a bird that evolved from a flying bird, but is designed for life on the land. With its massive body and huge neck, legs, and feet, it could never have flown. A male weighs an average of 250 pounds and stands 7 to 9 feet high. It can't fly, but it is a magnificent runner. It is the fastest creature on 2 legs. Did anybody know that? Fastest creature on 2 legs is an ostrich. I did not know that. The ostrich can run, get this, 43 miles an hour in bursts and can maintain 31 miles per hour for half an hour. I don't know if you watch football or not, but they'll like clock them and give their speed of some of the athletes. And I think one of the fastest guys, if not the fastest, is Tyreek Hill, and they've clocked him at 22 miles an hour. So that's about where man is running at fastest. They're running 31 miles an hour. Even ostrich chicks can run at more than 30 miles per hour. You guys will like this one. I was waiting for I knew it was coming. They look cute right there, huh? Till they turn into that. Okay, the ostrich's wings are a completely different type of wings from the flying bird. That just looks like a big drumstick, doesn't it? To anyone else? I mean, you can see it, right? Okay. The wings are used to regulate body temperature. The skin under the feathers is bare, and the creature expertly controls its internal temperature by covering and uncovering the skin with its wings. The ostrich also uses its wings as rudders when it runs. It can make quick turns using the wings as counterbalances. It's hard to hear what this guy says, so. Long legs of the ostrich combined with strides ranging from 10 to 16 feet. Public speeds up to 45 miles or 72 kilometers per hour. These top speeds use a short burst with the ostrich head put on and legs speeds around 30 miles an hour. The wheels will increase when the ostrich uses it. Balance will travel as long as slow down. The ostrich is near twice as fast as the ground and recognizes the fastest way to run. That is how fast an ostrich can run. Dr. Phil and we're helping you discover. All right, pretty neat. I don't know. This has nothing to really do with any of this, but I just think of it as I watch that. I would hate to have to run with like nothing to catch myself if I fall. I mean, did you think, like, look at them when they're running? I mean, if they go, they're just going to eat it. I mean, there's like nothing they can do. It's going to be bad. All right, flying bird feathers. Consider their feathers. Ostrich feathers aren't flight feathers with the complex interlocking hook system composed of barbs and barbules. So those are flying feathers. Ostrich feathers are soft and fluffy and act as perfect insulation. Consider the lack of a keel. The ostrich doesn't have a keel like flying birds. The keel is a large ridge on the breastbone to which the bird's powerful flight muscles are attached. It's there in the center. It looks like a T. Okay, since the ostrich doesn't fly, it doesn't need a keel. Consider the bones. That's, a cutaway diagram of flying birds' bones. They're hollow. The ostrich doesn't have hollow bones like a flying bird. Many of its bones are solid to provide strength for running and kicking and other functions on land. The ostrich is strong enough to be ridden by humans. In some countries, they have ostrich races.
And there they go. Long neck,
this is like ridiculous.
Aggressive left turn. And meanwhile, it is flightless Fred surging away to a big time
So that guy was excited about that race. All right, the Bible says the female ostrich is hardened against her young ones as though they were not hers. It is the male that raises the chicks, teaching them how to feed and protecting them from predators. The female is called a hen and the male is called a cock or rooster. The hen is gray colored and the cock is black. The ostrich eggs is 6 inches long and weighs as much as 3 pounds. It equals to 24 chicken eggs. That's a big egg. All right, vestigial legs on the whale. No doubt whales had hind legs once upon a time. Thomas Huxley. What's another name for Huxley? What was his, Darwin's bulldog, right? He's the one that went and like really stood for Darwinian evolution, right? So he said, no doubt whales had hind legs once upon a time. And this is what they use as proof for this is those bones right there. A very small percentage of sperm whales have vestigial leg bones, and some even have bone-supported bumps protruding from their body. Okay, the alleged hind legs are actually bones that are not attached to the whale's skeleton. The whale has no sign of a pelvis or any mechanism that has anything to do with vestigial legs. It's right there just kind of floating out there. The bones in question actually strengthen the reproductive organs and are different in males and females. So they're used to reproduce. That's what those are there for. The coccyx. It's called the tailbone because evolutionists believe it is left over from human evolution from apes. All right, and that's the coccyx right there. It's at the end of the spinal column and is part of the pelvic girdle. David Menton, PhD in cell biology from Brown University, says the coccyx is a very important part of the body. Dr. Menton says that the coccyx is not like a tail. It has no muscles associated with movement and no bones that are an extension of the vertebral column. The coccyx, with the many muscles that attach to it, is a very important part of human anatomy, forming a floor for the organs in the lower part of our body, so it serves a purpose. All right, the concept of vestigial organs has never been anything other than a myth. We're done there. Let me go to the next one. All right, the peppered moth now. So we've gone through the history of evolution, skeptics today, Darwin skeptics today, natural selection, mutations, vestigial organs, and now we're on the peppered moth. All right, the peppered moth. It's a major icon of evolution. In the New Guide to Science, Isaac Asimov used it as his sole evidence. Until recently, most biology textbooks used the peppered moth as evidence for evolution. It has been called evolution's prize horse and the slam dunk of natural selection. During the 1800s, there were two kinds of peppered moths in England, light-colored and dark-colored. Let me just say, I don't know if when I was growing up in school in the textbooks, I remembered it would always have a section, especially in the science textbooks is where I remembered it. It had a section after it would teach you something and it would say critical thinking, and then it would put some question there for you to like think through critically. And it doesn't really teach you critical thinking. And that's something we need to be critical thinkers. We need to think through what we're being told. And it's hard to do that sometimes, especially when you're young and you're in school and you really don't care. You're just like trying to get through it and get the grade, right? Just trying to pass. But as we become adults, we need to, even children, I mean, everyone needs to, but we need to teach people to think critically. So I want us to think through this because this is kind of the same thing that evolutionists always do, is they use one thing to teach something else, and we need to start to be able to see through it and see the fallacies in what they're teaching. So we're going to look at this here, and I just want to remind us to think critically, okay? So during the 1800s, there were two kinds of peppered moths in England, light-colored and dark-colored. Remember, this is like their it thing. This is their icon of evolution, right? So during the Industrial Revolution, factory pollution killed the lichen on trees so that the trees became darker in color. Lichen is a vegetative organism that grows on some trees. It covers the tree's bark. If it dies, the dark bark is visible. At that time, the number of dark moths increased. This was said to be because the light moths were easier to see against the tree trunks, so birds ate them first and the dark moths survived. Sounds like it makes sense, doesn't it? Okay. The simple change in the number of light and dark moths is supposed to prove that evolution occurs. Okay, so the simple change in the number of light and dark moths is supposed to prove that evolution occurs. This is supposed to demonstrate the power of natural selection or survival of the fittest. All right, the dark-colored moth was even given a new name, Biston betularia carbonaria, because it was supposed to be a new subspecies. The original research into the peppered moths was done by Bernard Kettlewell, who quit his medical practice with an agenda to prove evolution. In the March 1959 edition of Scientific America, Kettlewell proclaimed that he had discovered Darwin's missing evidence. Okay? This shows that evidence for Darwinism was still missing 100 years after he published On the Origin of Species. He published two photos that became major icons of evolution. The photos show peppered moths resting on a tree trunk. One tree trunk is dark colored and the dark moth is difficult to see. The other tree trunk is light colored and the light moth is difficult to see. It's really hard to see. I had to stare at it for a while. If you guys found it, if not, I'll point it out to you. It's pretty tough to find. It's right above the bottom of it is under light moth. See it? Did you guys see it or no? It's kind of tough. So like this is its head right here. Okay, you can see it going around right there. The wing comes down. This one comes like that. It comes over. You can see the little like bottom of its wings right here. It's pretty tough to see. So the peppered moth. Here's what I said, critical thinking. Okay, they said this is their icon of evolution. This proves Darwinian evolution is what they're trying to prove. Okay, but look at number one, the moths are still moths. Right? We accept microevolution, right? Changes within a kind. Those are still moths. Nothing has changed. That didn't prove anything. That's the same thing. Darwin had that when he wrote on The Origin of Species. He had it with his finches. They were different, right? They had different characteristics, smaller beaks, larger beaks, right? But they were still birds. Okay, that's the same thing here. They're still moths. And then the evidence was doctored. So we'll get into that. This is, okay, so it's stuff like this is why people are skeptical of science, okay, because of the things that they do. The evidence was doctored. This is why, take it with a grain of salt. When science has proven something, okay, just don't jump on the bandwagon right away is my only caution to you. Just be like, okay, maybe it's true, maybe it's not. Let's wait and see. I mean, I will always side with the Bible, but this is me personally. If science proves something that disproves the Bible, I'm like, I know science is wrong. Just give it some time. It'll catch up just like it always does. The Bible's right because it's the word of God. It's written by our perfect creator. There's no errors in it. Just give science long enough, it always catches up. Same thing with archaeology or whatever, okay? History, everything that the Bible touches on is accurate. But this is continual with them. The evidence was doctored. They say that it's science. And this is why it's so important for us to have our own understanding of things and to figure things out for ourselves. And you'll see why when we look at the evidence being doctored. Okay, so one, the moths are still moths. That's not proof of evolution. Adaptation of a species to its environment and variety within a species is not evidence for Darwinian evolution. Okay, creationists believe in change and variety within types of creatures or kinds. The 400 types of dogs are an example. They're all dogs, even though they're completely different. Okay, the peppered moth is still a moth. In fact, it is still a peppered moth, right? There were light and dark peppered moths to start with. So even before this, there were already light and dark peppered moths, okay? Nothing evolved. Different varieties of a creature, such as different colors of the peppered moth, do not prove that a dinosaur can become a bird or a wolf can become a whale. And this is what evolutionists always do, is they use what we accept as change within a kind. They use that to prove what has never been seen or never documented anywhere, that a dinosaur can be a bird or a wolf can be a whale. So they use this to prove a dinosaur to a bird or a wolf to a whale. When a wolf to a whale or a dinosaur to a bird, none of that's ever been proven. But then they throw in, well, the changes happen so slowly over so long a period of time that it can't be seen by the human eye. I'm like, then where are all these variations within that we see it slowly becoming that in the fossil record, right? Where is all that slow change over all these millions of years, right? It's never been found. Now, the variety within creatures is evidence of God's character. It shows his great wisdom. It shows his love of variety. It shows his foreknowledge to give creatures the ability to adapt to changing environments on a fallen earth. You know, going back to just talking about the ostrich not being able to catch itself if it falls, I bet it's so rare that an ostrich falls. I bet it hardly ever happens. Why? God designed them to be like that. Like, yeah, we fall. We're not designed to fall, but we do fall, right? I'm sure there's monkeys that fall out of trees as they're swinging through them, but it's pretty rare, right? I mean, those things do happen. But God designed us to work a certain way, and we do. We function very, very efficiently. All right, number two, subsequent studies have debunked the correlation between pollution and the change in moth color. Studies have demonstrated that pollution and tree lichens are not always correlated with a greater proportion of darker moths. In one place, for example, the number of darker moths increased after pollution decreased. So there goes that theory. This is the opposite of what should happen if natural selection is true. So when we see something like that, okay, this is like, these are hard numbers. Darker moths increased after pollution decreased. That we can recognize that, we can see the facts, and we can say, yes, that looks like science. Okay, so this disproves the theory that they were trying to put forth because we can see the numbers in front of us. Number 3, the evidence was doctored. Okay, research has proven that the peppered moth does not usually rest on tree trunks. Okay, like they found that picture of them, right? The famous photographs were faked by gluing moths to a tree. Hey, there's some honesty for you, right? They were faked. So this guy has to prove evolution by faking these pictures. Which, let me back up and say, like, it's fine if you glue them on there, but say, we set this up, we put this picture here. Just be honest in it. Don't act like you found them in their natural state. Okay. All right. Finnish zoologist, and Finnish means he's Finland. Okay. Kari Mikkola found that the normal resting place of a peppered moth is beneath small branches. Okay. So it doesn't rest on the side, the trunk of it. That's not how it does it. Okay. It's beneath small branches. Get this, in decades of field work, he and his colleagues only found one moth naturally perched on a tree trunk. Only one. Okay? In decades of his field work. In fact, the original researchers knew that the moths don't rest on tree trunks. In 25 years, we have only found 2 Betularia on the tree trunks or walls adjacent to our traps. Cyril Clark, a close friend of Kettlewell. All right, Jonathan Wells debunked the peppered moth myth in Icons of Evolution. Wells has a PhD in religion from Yale University and a PhD in cell biology from the University of California. Yet he has been treated like a fool by evolutionists for daring to challenge their beloved doctrine. Yet they haven't been able to refute him, and they have been forced to change their textbooks. In 2003, Judith Hooper debunked the peppered moth icon in her book of Moths and Men. Though she is an evolutionist, she has been treated roughly by the evolutionary establishment for daring to challenge the doctrine of evolution. See, someone like that, you can at least respect them because they look at the evidence and say, no, this doesn't prove it. That's at least respectable. All right, and that's all we've got. So I'm going to stop there. We will